this looks good. Oh my God,
this is delicious. All right, and now it's time for our plate of the day, our main topic. The Bronx is lit right now, but is it burning? So I wanted to dive a little bit into this conversation around the Bronx, its art and culture, and how gentrification ensues gentification. Now, gentification is a term that not everyone is familiar with. It just in around 2016, 2017, the term started sort of bubbling up, and it's meant to define somebody who, does have some sort of tie to the community or was of the community that probably has left. And this could mean going to like college and coming back into the community with this like newfound either wealth or like consciousness and coming in and starting new businesses in back in these spaces. Now, the sort of like line between how some people are like gentification is good and some people are like gentification sucks is that sometimes they feel like the consciousness or care to the community isn't always there for these folks, even though they have sometimes been living in this community prior, that they're so disconnected. It's almost like you get up out the hood and then they want to give back to the hood, but is it really about giving back to the hood? Or is it about, oh, I know this area and I know that, gentrification is surrounding it. So I can use the authenticity of my tie to this community in order to build a brand and make mad money out this shit because I can do it here. But in the white spaces, even though I have the knowledge and stuff, I'm not really accepted in those spaces in the same way. So I can't have the same level of success there, but I do have the tools and I have it and I'm going to do it here in my space. But then what does that mean for the people who don't get to leave and are struggling and are still trying to build these same sorts of businesses in these contexts? And now suddenly they become their competitors and are often backed by funders that are coinciding with gentrification and not people who are on the community grassroots trying to do something for the neighborhoods. So I just wanted to unpack that, right? Like what is happening to the Bronx? Is our culture being sold out in a way? And are we the ones selling it?
Can I just say in terms, and this is not to like answer anything, but just being a Bronx native, as we all three are, being someone who was born and bred in the Bronx, has lived in several parts of the Bronx, just walking around the Bronx and seeing the gentrification is crazy. It's a weird feeling of like, wow, this beautification really did not exist when I grew up.
Right.
And like this borough and this image that we're building right now really did not exist when we were coming up. And it's almost, in a way, there's a part of me that gets offended.
Yes.
And there was a day where I was driving in the car with my mom, who grew up on Kelly Street. My mom's a South Bronx girl. Yeah. And so what's so funny is that I grew up in the northeastern part of the Bronx. I grew up in Co-op City,
Bougie.
Bougie, yeah. And my mom growing up down there and now me living down there, there was one day we were driving and we saw a coach bus and a crowd of white people taking a picture in front of a big pun mural.
They love it.
Yeah.
They do hip hop tours, not ran by black people, of course.
And literally my mom got offended and I got offended with her. I was like, yo. So literally I just wanted to make that comment of like, just seeing it, there's a part of it that the person in me that wants success wants to take part in it because I'm from here and I feel like if it's being brought here, then I need to take part in it.
Absolutely.
But then there's a part of me that literally makes my blood boil because seeing it happen, where y'all been the last 28 years? You know what I mean?
Hello, because we spent our years in high school fleeing the Bronx and hanging out. We would go to buttfuck Brooklyn, pata hanging out because the gentrification was right. And this is and I'm curious, what high school did you go to?
I was a Monsignor Scanlon Catholic school.
We went to LaGuardia. I guess very almost complete opposite. LaGuardia, completely liberal, like wild, with a lot of white privileged kids, a lot of them. And so what we got was like before, because at that point the Bronx wasn't being gentrified or anything. Yeah. So what we saw was through our friends in this new world, an insight to a different New York than the Bronx, New York that we grew up in. And so we wanted to be like, please, I've been brunching for years and like I've been doing all these sorts of things because these kids had that more elite upbringing, and so they are like how you said how your parents used to take you out to eat, and you had that costumbre. They had different costumbres, and so we would be in the shits and we'd real mixy and like everywhere but the Bronx. Hang out in the Bronx, it'd be like, why, like, you know, and nobody ever wanted to come here. And for me, at least personally, I've developed this thing of like, oh, it's a burden. Like the Bronx is a burden for people to come visit me in, for me to even engage and hang out in, because all it is el tigueraje and all that shit, and I'm not down with that. So, you know, and I was smoking weed, but I was smoking out of bowls with white people. You know, I was not smoking blunts and drinking honey.
With
Yeah, I
weed.
still drink, you know, but like that, but like this separation that I was able to do. And now that I've come into my adulthood and like I understand things like gentrification, and I do care about my community in a way because I had an aha moment about what I was internalizing in high school. Now I'm back here and I'm like, shit, like I still want my bougie coffee. I still want like all of these luxuries, and it does make me happy to see people of color behind some of these initiatives. But there's a layer behind that.
Yeah.
And it's the layer of how do they get started and how do they get funded? And this is where this gentification piece comes in, is that, you know, you might fund a shop that, you know, is representative of the Bronx and its culture, but you're also funding that big luxury building in which all these, you know, gentrifiers are going to come in, and they're going to dictate the culture of this area because they're the ones who are bringing in the most, you know, money into this economy. And so they dictate it. So if they don't like something, it doesn't matter that the vecina who's been living here for 30 something years, you know, cares about the space in a particular way. It's not about her. She's not the one whose money you're after. You're after the people who you're corralling in. And that is so...
But it's also important to note, and it's an unfortunate matter. You know Soho.
Yeah.
Do you remember what Soho used to be?
It used to be a bunch of art punks and stuff like it was not this bougie.
In general, whether we like it or not, it's something that we have to come to terms with. Artists are the leaders of gentrification. We clean up spaces, we make them pretty and cool, and then people move in after, and then they take it and push us out. Yeah. But we are actually a part of that development and process. So it's something I had to come to terms with as like, so I had a different experience. I was out and about, not because I went to a public school like LaGuardia, but because I was an artist from early on.
Right.
And I was amongst middle class income students, being from a Catholic school background. So I was always up and about, and I was always traveling and like heading out from early on. So I never had this separation of the Bronx. I don't want to be a part of it because I lived that life being from the Bronx, you know?
Right.
Like in high school, all my friends had cars, even though we were from the Bronx. So that was the life.
That's crazy.
That's like,
yeah, that's crazy.
So it was normal for me. So for me, when I came back from living abroad and traveling and doing a master's in London, it was a passionate thing of mine, but I was like, I want to end up like somehow doing the damn thing in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it was just a part of the process. I knew I'd always end up back here for a period of time to give back. But I had to come to terms with the fact that I was willingly giving back to a process and a system that was going to also work against the very people I wanted to help. And it brings me back to my earlier point, and it really is it's something I'm really passionate about. How do we avoid the funders and give the money, make that money come from ourselves, from our communities?
Right.
J-Lo, where you at? Chica.
Word.
Yo, honestly, nah. But
We in the
honestly,
same neighborhood, Chica. Hola.
and bitch, you out in Miami doing that fucking Super Bowl and
I'm
shit.
not gonna be shady, Chica. I'm trying to like.
I love her. No. I love her, but that's also something that I've constantly thought of.
Yeah,
like
J-Lo, come through, boo boo.
If I ever when I get to J-Lo status, the
Yeah.
first thing I'm gonna do is open a school in the Bronx. You
Right,
know, like
right.
the first thing
Or
that I'm gonna do
foundation,
is
to
or
make that money
foundation
flow in
or
and
this
out.
or that. Like
Yeah.
that's one thing that I will say, and I am a J-Lo fan.
Me too.
Or buy a building, create the
yeah.
first
Right.
artist housing of the Bronx.
I'm
Longevity,
really down for some
longevity.
artist housing shit. I've actually
Girl.
had
West Beth
the
is in the
thought of
West,
that.
is in the West Village. It's a real building, the oldest, largest artist housing, literally in the heart of the beautiful West Village. The Martha Graham School where I trained
Right.
is on the 11th floor, where former Cunningham studios were, and so I had the luxury of like going to this beautiful West Village for all of my dance training years, and in a building full of like they're all aging out. Like a lot of them are older population, but only broke. Like we're talking $500 rents.
Wow.
Broke artists. It's for that.
Right.
Like what would it look like if one of our people would create that for the Bronx?
Right.
Like there's money in our people. There's money in our communities. how do we make that go back to our people?
Right. And even in the like this idea of bringing the dollar in. So like, let's assume a lot of these awesome new Bronx ventures that we're seeing pop up are funded by the very people that are, bringing in these condominiums and the gentrification. But isn't there a way in which, and this is the part where I'm always like dancing the line of like, because I understand grassroots movements, and there are some people who are like, I don't give a fuck how black that owner is. I'm not buying coffee from there because of who funded them, right? And like, I understand that because there's almost like this this stubbornness of like, if we give in certain areas, we're giving them an inch and they will always take a mile. And how many times do we need to give them an inch before, and the money always goes back to them, right? And so like, I understand that fight and that struggle. And I believe that in order for that tactic to work, it has to have numbers behind it, meaning a lot of people need to agree to make that the case in order for it to have the level of impact that they hope.
But not enough people have that education.
But not enough people have that
So what about me when I want to start my business?
Exactly. And then that's where I stand. My foot is on the other side of this, is like, pero coño, if I tomorrow had an opportunity to open a media center, like Ladies Who Bronche Media Center, and like, I could create studio space and have it at affordable prices for, young artists to come in and record and do things. And then I can do empowerment workshops and all that stuff. And then the person who's giving me the money is the person who's responsible for that building structure that's already going up behind me, whether or not I existed in this space or not, and then like, but then it's that question of, pero diablo, do I hold out? Because where am I going to get that money from?
If you don't make the media center, then you get pushed out by another person who will. So like,
somebody will always say yes. And so it's such a conflict because I actually genuinely 100% understand both sides. And at the end of the day, I'm not mad because if it's me or like I said, these other businesses, if they get a cut of it, they weren't going to get a cut of shit, because we also sometimes in our community have a bad habit, and not so much amongst the artist community, but people outside the artist world have a bad habit of, oh, that motherfucker made that shit from the Bronx. That shit's probably cheap. That shit's probably not as the same quality. And they don't regard what we create in the space with the same love and like brand trust as Louis and all these like big brands when we're talking about fashion, or like these restaurants that aren't even that fancy, but because they got a great critics picks, now that's where we're going to go have our brunches and do our celebrations. Like we will constantly follow a thought pattern outside of our own because we don't trust that what we create here has the same value. And that's a different level of education that we have to sort of have and like teach each other, is that like, if we want to make this area just as cool as that, we can do it with ourselves and not wait for other people to tell us it's cool. But we have to, again, reinvest that dollar into what we do, because then if that's the case, then as a business owner, if I'm like, yo, they don't know who my funder is, but I'm making X amount of dollars and this person's getting a cut as of now, but if I cut them out, I already have the clout to support the business, so I don't need them anymore. So when this lease is up, or when, the moment comes where the contracts, because there's always a moment where contracts have to be reassessed, that I can be like, you know what, I'm good, fuck y'all. And if they're like, oh, well, we're going to raise this rent. Oh, well, that's good because I got my client base. So you go ahead and do what you got to do.
Again,
but we're not there yet.
It brings me back to my point, because I'm going to repeat it over and over to everyone until it gets to everyone. What if we put that money back in our community? We bought that fucking building, so we don't got to pay them that rent.
Right.
It's that big. What I'm asking of us is that big.
Right.
I'm not asking us to just support small businesses. I'm saying, what would it look like if we got together, put our money together, and bought those two buildings? Right. And the only thing one building is going to exist for is a business on each floor. Right. The other one we're going to rent out affordably. Whatever that's going to look like.
Whatever, yeah.
We got to think that big. We got to buy property.
Right.
It's not just about buying a hoodie off of a homie. We got to really, really think longevity, long term. Yeah. And that's how you're really going to create that equity for your community. And that's how you're really going to, I think, make a long lasting impact. Yeah. We got to think like the other people. I'm not kidding. Yeah. When you see like, I'm saying it as a shout out. When you see these Jewish, these Korean communities, existing, you see the Amish, like, it doesn't matter who moves into Pennsylvania. Nobody's going to push out the Amish. Right. Because they only sell their land back to their people. Right. They're like, you guys can gentrify Lancaster. I was just over there teaching. They're like, that's fine.
Yeah, you do what you do. We good here.
We still here. Yeah. So we got to think about how to really mark our space and make that possible for our people to mark their space.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, like, what do we do in lieu of that? Like, as we build to get, because that requires, like, we all need to get the same level of education and understanding how these processes work, right? So we can band together, because, we can do one building, or we can have several pockets of different community getting different spaces. And
we've been doing that. Look at Sociedades. Hello, Latinos know how to do that. We just have to think about it in a greater scale.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
remember, I don't know about everyone else, but my parents used to put money into societies. Like, that's what
Oh
the
my
sociedad
God.
is.
Wait,
That's what I mean.
Was the Lions Club a society?
No, but like, I'm talking about like, my tío used to run a sociedad.
Right.
100 people used to pay
Yeah.
every month into
Yeah,
it.
they're like
and along the
susus
way,
almost.
people, susus,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get like a cut of that.
Yeah.
Like, mad illegal, mad under the table. You don't know who's gonna run away with your money.
Right.
But you trusted that, like,
Yeah.
on the 4th of April, in 3 months, I'm getting my 6K.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
will little
Wow.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we think about that in the grand scheme of things?
Right.
On a larger scale.
Right, because and financial literacy is so important, man. I have to tell you, because even being part of something like that, you really have to have a strong sense of financial literacy to understand what happens on February 4th when you get that money, right? You get that 6K, but how do you make it so that it's not constantly I have it now and then I don't have it? How do you make it so that you put it in an investment? So like the suso te dio 6K, pero what you did with that 6K now paid you back some more. So like, you know what I mean? And so like that's how you get to build wealth and equity, because you can't make certain financial, like some things require down payments and certain things, and you don't have that at that moment. These societies give you that like financial kick in the moment to do that, but we need to make sure that when we're having these moments, we actually understand how to do it the best way possible so that these sociedades can actually have the longer term effect that Megan's talking about. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and for me, it's like, it's kind of sucks too, because I find myself in this position of always wanting, first of all, we should always do our research on like who we're buying from and stuff. I mean, like I said, like when we talk about fashion, for example, like we have these Louis brands and all these big fucking people out in Paris embarrassing us with fake cornrows. And like every year that there's a fashion week or something, I wait for the headline of which designer did the really fucked up, the cornrow wig.
Oh my God.
You know?
Covering the ears?
Right. They saw Cardi do it once in that video with Bruno Mars. And then they
I just don't understand the choices.
I mean, I put like things
It
over
looked
my
horrible.
ears because my ears are big, but it wouldn't ever be a wig.
Not a cornrow wig.
With the track.
Right,
like,
with the
yo no
tracks all
puedo.
showing. So
I can't.
outside of the fact that it is messy as fuck, and don't nobody be out here looking that crazy.
Like-
Number
like
one,
Avatar.
right? Like nobody be out here looking that crazy. But like, you know, just really this idea of like, but we still buy and glorify these brands. Right. But we will not turn around and like, listen, people have mixed feelings about a lot of different fashion lines and things that are coming out of the Bronx. But like, they're the ones who are like really trying to like keep like have our voice be ours, and they are of our community. And you know, but then we don't want to support them because of who funds them. But then it's like, but what is Louis doing?
You know?
Like
You
what
know?
is everybody else doing? Fuck that. What fast food are you eating
Pick your battles.
that funds Trump? Let's talk about that. You have every day-to-day choices that you make when you walk
You
into
know
the
it.
bodega that are worse than the choice that you'll make when you're buying local. But then how do we do that and then still hold the local people accountable and say, hey, I understand your journey. I feel like there is a middle ground that we can find at some point, but there's a big gap that needs to be filled first. And it's this financial literacy, and it's the understanding the long game.
It's also the sensitivity movement happening. Like everyone all of a sudden became so sensitive overnight that they can't fucking pull their thumb out their ass and focus on the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's like, who do we attack first? And it's easier to do it to your people in your community because it's like, oh, you right here, so I can hold you accountable right here. But bro,
I'm good.
you
I'm giving
still
money back.
shopping
Yes.
in spots that are oppressing both of y'all, let alone you. Both of you people are being oppressed by the same person, but you want to fight with the person next to you, and you don't want to
Who's succeeding a little.
Yeah, right?
Little.
Whose successes aren't even as glamorous as you might appear, and they do still have to bust their ass, and they do have to often be one man shops, right? And like one person shops who are like running around getting shit done because they can't afford to have a full functioning team. They don't have factories. They don't have a lot of these resources, but we're quick to be like, no, to them. And I feel like there is a gap, and we need to fill it, because there's a way in which if we can actually be in good conversation with our gentefiers, our gentefiers can be our bigger partners in larger efforts.
Not be offended by being called out or being whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
'cause
It
it's
goes both
also
ways.
on them.
Yeah, to be able to have the dialogue with us. Yeah. 100%. So any favorite brands or artists right now coming out the Bronx that we should check out?
Favorite brands or artists? Oh God.
Or organizations?
Brain fart.
I always like shouting out bad. I know
I
we were
was
talking
about
about
to talk
bad.
about bad. Bad never gets old, and I'm going to tell you why bad never gets old. There is no organization like it in all of this fabulous city of New York.
Yes.
We're talking about an organization, Bronx Academy of Art and Dance, that exists to support trans, LGBTQA, Latinos, Black, brown, artists. There's no organization that starts the sentence with that.
Yes, come on,
There's
Bab.
no safe spaces, especially. I don't think I'm gonna say no, and then y'all can like talk
Do
about
research
me later.
later.
But I'm just gonna put it out there. Who's looking out for trans community right now?
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
Bronx,
Trans
so
artists
openly,
in the city.
and
We're
with
talking
the
about 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
Even in cool Brooklyn, where everybody thinks that they're coming up with the next best thing. Like, please.
no safe spaces for trans people.
Let's start
Yeah.
with that and the non-binary community as well.
Yeah.
Like, they just made a call. They're putting together a concert, and they want people like queer identifying choreographers only to apply. And I was able to send that out to like friends of mine in Queens, friends of mine in Brooklyn. I'm like, hey, you should apply for this. I can't.
Yes.
Right.
They're
But-
hanging a picture of me in their trans gallery.
Yeah.
I hope it's the one of you in your underwear.
Right.
No, it's not.
Okay,
It's not. I
damn.
think it's
But
gonna
that
be
would
the
bring
one
the-
in the coat, but
Yeah.
it'll be just as epic.
Just as epic.
I
You
just
are
think that
epic.
it's like really cool that like my
Yeah.
picture's gonna be there.
Absolutely. No, it is. It is cool because
So
it's,
bad.
it's a space of legacy.
Yes.
And I do, yes, definitely go out and support Bad. Bad's incredible. Also, their fundraiser every year is that carnival that they do.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god,
It's
it was
incredible.
it's so fun.
Yeah.
better
and
each year.
Yeah.
the gala
Yeah.
in October.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, so definitely look out for Bad. And just, I guess the big takeaway from here is that, it's fine to sort of struggle with where you stand around this idea of gentrification. I think we all are pretty much on the same page about gentrification,
Yeah.
both the good, the bad, and ugly of it. But like, I think the conversation around gentrification is one to be had because though the gentrification is coming, it hasn't finished yet and it's not halfway through. So
not
there's
even.
still enough time for us as a community to stop being so shady and petty with each other and actually try to understand from both perspectives what is happening here so that we can actually truly take our community back.
You know, that thing we didn't do during the last elections, we should try to do
Do
it
it
in our
now.
communities first
Yeah.
before the
Right.
next election because
Right.
it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another topic for another day, Megan.
That's just a reminder to get a little more understanding before we have to go out
Right.
in November.
Please vote, guys. I know.
Please, don't stay home.
Please just
Nah,
show
nah,
up.
that
I know
ass.
it feels like
Please.
I get it. I know it feels like it's not gonna do anything, but y'all, we
I
gotta
disagree.
We gotta.
It
Exactly. Yeah.
really, really makes an impact
But
when you don't do
we've
it.
never actually really shown up. So how do we really know it doesn't work? Like I hate when
Literally.
people do that because I'm like, bro, I get your logic, but do you know in practice we've actually never all shown up and had it proven to us that us all showing up means nothing? So can we try showing up this year? And then if it's fucked up, okay, now I'll shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
we'll go back to the
the
drawing
plan,
board.
yeah.
We'll plan again. But let me see us
Yeah,
all
what
vote
would it
first
look
and
like?
then see what happens.
What would it look
Yeah.
like if all the oppressed people in this country voted?
Yeah, and in the LGBTQAI plus community right now, I think it was like only a third of that whole population here in the United States is registered to vote right now for this election. Only a third, and that community is getting attacked and destroyed up and down in this administration. And I am
Daily.
terrified that only a third are prepared to vote. And by the way, that doesn't mean they're all voting Democrat.
But also, if they're not voting, it is for a reason that attacked people feel like they can't. So even amongst our brown bodies, there are privileged people, and I know that
Yep.
I'm one of them. We need to show up for our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason those people feel attacked. They feel like their voices are not heard. People with big mouths on this side of the spectrum need to get up and get active.
Yeah,
Like, we
absolutely.
really need to.
So on that note, any shout outs, any plugs that you want to give?
Yeah, all day, every day.
You gave me the duh, of course.
I want to give a shout out to my mommy and papi who I had breakfast with at 8:30 this morning because my schedule's so crazy that they got up on a Sunday just to see me.
Aw, I
live
love
for my mommy and
that.
daddy.
Yes, mommy, papi.
I want to give a shout out to mi gente. We out here and we're doing the damn thing with a smile on our face all the time,
Yes.
with good spirits. No one can defeat us, and we're always on the up and up. And all of us from all the islands, all the little places. And I just find us to be such a magical people. And I always say mi gente because I envision one day when I accept my Oscar.
Yes,
like
when
my
you
speech
accept it.
is gonna have like a little section to like dedicated to pa mi gente, mi Latinos unidos que somos. So I always like give it in a real shout out as practice for that day.
Yes, it's practice.
Yeah, and yeah, like I want to give a shout out to all the jaded, hardworking, active humans, right? Like people in our community. I think it's so easy to just be like, guys, but we got to show up. And like, I just want to say we're all exhausted, but like, I see you out there. I know we're fucking busting our ass to do our thing. And there's so many more of us than there are of the others. And I don't know, just remember like to love. And like that really does triumph a lot.
Yes. And then where can we find you?
On the social interwebs.
On IG, if you want like all the art stuff, is at MEGAN_CURET. If you also want to see like world traveling vegan bullshit, then it's without the underscore. So I have like two. I made it easy.
Yes.
And
Megan Cure.
cure in Spanish, cure for the rest of you. And yeah, hit me up. Let's collaborate. Slide into my DMs. Only if you want to like legit collaborate. Don't just slide into my DMs because I'm not about that.
Yes, and we'll look out for your shows and all your travels and all that wonderful stuff. And you can find us on IG at Ladies Who Bronche, on Twitter at Ladies Bronche, Facebook, all the fucking platforms you can listen on. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time, Bronche.